I'm going to teach you several ways to detach completely and compassionately. Make sure you stick around till the end for that last insight because it's one that nobody else is talking about, and I really want to make sure you have all the tools you need to detach. Because a lot of times we can look to the external to give us love. We can look to a person to tell us we're worthy. We can look to our friends. We can look to our peers to tell us we're good, to tell us we're great. That causes an attachment, a deep, deep-rooted attachment to needing these external sources of validation. Detachment can sound like a harsh word, but really it is important to live a life lucidly, to live a life that is fulfilling, to remain somewhat detached compassionately. It's not about becoming overly detached where you're emotionally avoidant. That's an extreme, and it's actually an attachment to a fear too of being too vulnerable. Really what detachment is about is living in this space where you're not being overly swayed by the external, where you found your center anchoring and grounding, and then you're able to meet the world and meet life from this space of feeling totally content and centered within yourself. And then you actually have deeper love to give. You have more honest and true friendship, relationships, all of these things, because you're not doing it from the space of overextending yourself, of putting your center of gravity onto somebody else and then spiraling around them. You're able to not take things personally, which is some of the hardest things that we have to do, right? If somebody does attack you, if somebody is mean to you, that's when a lot of attachment can kick in too, of either trying to prove them wrong, trying to win them back over, trying to get them to take it back. All of these are attachments to needing the other person to change, to needing the other person's mind to be different about you, when really we can never know first what's going on inside of somebody else's head, and then we can never actually change it either. So the biggest thing that we need to do is just detach from needing to control other people, needing to control what they think of us. That's really what it comes down to. And on the deeper level, what it comes down to is that we're making it so that what they think of us is the law, is the truth, is the ultimate truth, when really it's not. It's just an opinion. Tons of people have opinions about tons of things and preferences about tons of things, and whatever they think of you is not ultimately who you are or what you are. Who you are and what you are needs to be known by yourself first and foremost, and then you're able to move from this place compassionately, understanding that everybody has their past traumas, has their past situations that are coloring the world as they're seeing it. So it's not about being rude and being mean to other people because, oh, I don't care what anybody thinks about me, I'm going to be a jerk to everybody. No, that's not what it's about. It's about when we can come into ourselves more, then we can be really compassionate and see through that lens of, oh, this person might be saying this about me because they had this past thing happen to them, and I remind them of this other person. Okay, I'm going to take a breath. I'm not going to take it personally, and I'm going to have compassion for myself about how it's hard to be projected on. I'm going to have compassion for this other person. And then also in that, we can see when reflections are coming to us that are true and good and areas we actually need to work on. If we don't have this over-attachment to everything somebody else says about us is true, then we don't have this over-need to either prove ourselves, to avoid blame, or to take it all in and think, oh, I'm such a terrible person. We can really sit in this area of, wow, okay, I actually hear that, and that is something I could work on, and I can take responsibility for that. When we are attached to situations or people, a lot of times it's stemming from an aspect of our own lives that we're not happy with. We need to look inside and see what is missing in our lives. What are we not connecting with that we are passionate about, that we are here to do? What is our purpose? Our purpose and our drive are such a big element of being able to live a fulfilled and fulfilling life. And so if we're feeling like there's areas in our lives that we're discontent with, a lot of times rather than addressing those, because those can be harder things and longer term goals, what we'll do is we'll look towards situations or people to be able to fill that void feeling. And unfortunately, that can only last so long because everything is temporary, especially if we're getting into relationships that are driven by this need to be fulfilled by this other person, or if we're getting driven into situations because we want it to fill our time, fill our mental space so we don't have to sit alone with our discontentment, we're still going to have that peace inside of ourselves that is missing, that is feeling lacking, that is empty. So the first thing that you want to do is make sure that you assess what in your life are you feeling dissatisfied with? Where do you want to go still? What do you need to do still? Make a list of several things in your life that you'd like to see shift so that you can feel more fulfilled. When somebody says, I didn't like your work on this project, or I'm sorry, I'm not attracted to you, or anything like that, suddenly it spirals us down because we are attached, we are dependent on these external sources of validation and affirmation. And so then it creates this horrible loop where we can get into people pleasing, where we can get into sacrificing our own needs because we never want to be rejected. We never want to be told we're bad because we're looking at this other person, this other source as our highest source of validation and as the ultimate authority on if we are good or not. What you need to do to detach from all of that is to really cultivate this self-love and this self-confidence, knowing and standing in that you are a beautiful, good, and worthy person who deserves to be loved, who deserves to be acknowledged, and yet you don't need somebody else to tell you that you're okay. You don't need somebody else to tell you that you're deserving. And it's a lot easier said than done. People talk about self-love all the time, and yet really it is a journey, and it's step by step, and it can be a slow process. Maybe it's just telling yourself a few nice things that you want to hear from other people. Tell yourself that each day, because we can all be really good at thinking negative thoughts about ourselves all the time. What if we just took one moment, one instance each day where we're thinking a negative thought about ourselves and replaced it with a positive thought? Ugh, I'm so bad at my job, I'm never going to get promoted. Let me take that thought out, and instead I'm going to say, I'm doing really good right now. I'm trying my hardest, and I'm going to succeed because I know that I am capable of doing great work in this world. So that's how you can slowly build self-love. And of course, that could be a whole video in and of itself. But when you do have this foundation of self-love then inside of you, you're not overly dependent and attached on other people or situations validating you. So that's another key element of being able to operate from the space of, I don't need to care what you think about me because I know I'm great. I know I'm doing good. I know I'm worthy. And I have compassion for myself in the moments that I mess up. I know I'm human as well. I know that I'm not going to be perfect all the time, and that's okay because that's what we're all here to do, is to learn and grow constantly. And yet you're not, oh my God, this person said something nice about me. Now I need to go and be with them. Oh my God, this person did this nice thing for me. Now I'm going to overextend myself and I'm going to try and please them because that's the most important thing, is getting more of their love and validation. We can live in this world of fantasies. We can get more attached to the ideas in our head about situations or people than actually the reality of who they are or what the situation is like. We can think about, they are so great in these ways and they can change in these ways and they can become this person and then it would all be great. We kind of start gaslighting ourselves into believing that we really like something more than we do, and we're not honest with ourselves. And so we need to get honest with ourselves and really assess, rather than living in a fantasy, living in the past, in the present moment, how are you actually feeling about this person? First, write out the fantasy. Let it be written out, because the act of writing is so powerful. When you get words down on paper, outside of your mind, onto the page, you're able to see them from this different perspective. So write down the fantasy first, and then after that, write down the reality, the things that you're kind of scared to admit to yourself. Like, I've been in this job for 12 years, but I'm actually not that happy in it. Whoa, that's scary. What would it look like to shift my life? You don't have to think about all of the steps ahead. Just get honest with how you're really feeling. And you can even exaggerate it as you're doing this exercise. Maybe you aren't like, oh, I hate this person. But if that's how you feel in the moment, let yourself get it out. No one else is going to see this, so just be honest with yourself to the extremes. And then you can come to a more equal and centered place where you're seeing the over-exaggerated fantasy as well as maybe the over-exaggerated, oh, this is so horrible. And you can find that middle place and live in reality such as it is, rather than a illusion and delusion of how you'd like it to be. And that will help you to detach from this fantasy and thus from situations and people that maybe aren't that great, but you're holding out this hope that it could change, that it could become your fantasy. The next thing with attachment is that a lot of times we can get very controlling, even though we don't realize it, around our lives and the ways that we want them to go. There's a beautiful Chinese parable about a man who is constantly faced with these various situations, and one situation seems really great, and one situation seems really horrible, but each time he says, "Who's to say?" Because really he doesn't know what the end point is going to look like. First, his son falls off a horse and gets terribly hurt in his legs, and it's everybody in the town says, "Oh my God, that's so horrible. I'm so sorry that happened to you." And he says, "Who's to say?" Next, the army comes into town and takes all the young boys that are able to fight. Well, his son wasn't able to fight because he hurt himself. And so then everybody says, "Wow, what a blessing. That's so amazing." And again, he says, "Who's to say?" This attitude of who's to say helps you to not be overly attached to both the really amazing moments as well as the really low lows, because you're viewing life through this lens of an unfolding and a constant unfolding where every step in every situation, whether it is hard or wonderful, is teaching you and leading you along your path. And so you can detach from needing control around the outcomes of various situations that you're faced with. You might feel like, I really want to have control. I really want to have a partner at this time. I'm going to write down exactly what they look like. I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to go after it. I'm going to go on all the dating apps. And then when you find somebody that maybe isn't that great, but hey, you've been so attached to the idea that you must have a partner right now, then you stick with them, you settle with them, you get overly attached to them too quickly, and then it's only down the road that you wish you would have taken it slower, that you wish you would have taken a moment, a pause, a break, to really assess if that's what you wanted. You can plant the seed of what you want in your life, but then let it go. Write down what you want, but don't get too particular about exactly when it has to happen and exactly how it has to look. Because I found that manifestation really works in a much subtler way, where we're putting this seed of intention out there, and then the universe is able to bring us exactly what we both want as well as what we need. And sometimes we don't know exactly what that's going to look like. So being open to seeing and being grateful for what you're given when you're given it and really receiving is such a beautiful thing. And then when you do receive too, not grabbing too tight, understanding that there's abundance of things that happen in your life, both good and bad, and this who's to say attitude helps you to really live into that no matter what the situation is, there is a gift in it. And I want to acknowledge that there are really hard situations, really traumatic situations. This is not to say that it's no big deal, or it's fine. We have to acknowledge the deep traumas and horrible things that happen to us, get counseling, get support, and really be held in that space and give ourselves compassion for how intense life can be sometimes. And yet, with the more mundane situations and with the various things that are happening to us from day to day, if we cannot get overly attached to connecting a story with them of, oh, this is so horrible, or oh, this is the best thing that'll ever happen to me, we're able to live in a much more equanimous way and really move through life beautifully and with gratitude, but not with a clinging energy of that we must have this, and once we have it, we can never let it go. Detach from that. You can really breathe into this energy of, it's okay. And it's all working together to teach me the lessons that I need to learn and to grow me into the person that I'm supposed to be. Next, I want to talk about letting go, which really, that is what this all really comes down to, is being able to detach means being able to let go of people and situations and external things that are no longer serving us, as well as letting go of inner beliefs and inner systems that we formed to protect ourselves originally, but that are now becoming dysfunctional. What we need to do to let go and to detach is really to be able to do all the things that we've been talking about in this video and do the practices of loving ourselves, doing the practices of not becoming overly dependent on what other people think, doing the practices of writing down what is working in our lives as well as what is not working, and start living the life that we truly want to live so we can feel fulfilled in and of ourselves. That generative energy can lead to this overwhelming wellspring of feeling like we have abundance inside of ourselves. And that is really the key. When you feel like you have an abundance inside of yourself, you're not attached to needing it coming into you. You are then the wellspring of energy that you can bless others, and you can give that compassion and you can give that energy out without depleting yourself, because you're whole of and in yourself. And so the last thing that I want to talk about, which I told you is something nobody else is talking about really, is being able to connect into the dream time to help you detach. So there are two ways you can do this. I teach a lot around lucid dreaming, and that is a really powerful way to be able to do it. But first I want to talk about, if you can't lucid dream, you can still use your dreams to show you the areas of attachment as well as to detach. The way to do that is to be able first to connect to your dream time. And this comes from writing down your dreams regularly. It can be hard to remember your dreams. I have several videos about how to remember your dreams, so I'll link those above and you can check those out if you're having a hard time. And when you do start to be able to remember your dreams, write them down and start looking for clues about areas that you are overly attached to. And in the dream time, it can be symbolic. It can be that maybe a person is coming to you and yelling you about something that's totally unrelated, but really it's more about the emotional charge between you and that person or with that situation. And so start highlighting these areas where you're seeing these hooks, you're seeing these unresolved issues. And you can really get honest with yourself using your dreams too. A lot of times, like I said earlier, we might kind of gaslight ourselves into like, oh, this situation's fine, this relationship's fine, I'm totally happy with my job, when deep down we're not. So we might be saying, I am totally happy with this relationship, and then every night have dreams about them cheating on us, have dreams about yelling and fighting about the most mundane things, or even more abstract, like have a dream about a past partner that's coming back and annoying us. These could all be signs of that, hey, there's something amiss right now in my relationship that I'm not wanting to look at consciously, because it might mean a letting go, or it might mean me having to speak up for myself more, or it might mean needing to detach more from this situation. And so really getting honest with yourself through your dream time is one of the best ways to see what is going on in your psyche that you're working with. Now, if you can become lucid, which again, I teach that a lot, so make sure to subscribe to this channel and to watch various videos that I've put out there about lucid dreaming if you want to know how to do that more. But when you become lucid, you can take it a step further, because in a lucid dream, you're able to interact with the dream in a conscious way, knowing that you're dreaming. And so you can play out these different scenarios. Say you're thinking about letting go of a partner you're breaking up. Try it out in a lucid dream. Become lucid in the dream. Bring your partner, summon your partner over, and have that tough conversation. The beauty is that you can work through and try out these different things without them having waking life consequences, and yet your psyche is able to, in a very real way, because it feels as real as being awake, having a conversation with that person, is able to work through and start to see what it would be like to let go, to see what it would be like to detach from the situation, or to see if there's ways to work through it and to find a space where you're feeling better about it all. So that is the secret formula potion of how to be able to detach using your dreams. And really, when you're able to integrate your dream time and your ordinary reality, waking and sleeping, then you can start to see how it's all so interconnected, and how when you find this power inside of yourself, when you find this power inside of your dreaming through lucid dreaming, or just through deeply connecting with and remembering your dreams, you're going to feel more detached compassionately from the situations, because you're more deeply connected in with your intuition and with your inner knowing about who you are, how you feel about a situation, and how you want to operate in the world, and knowing you have this agency and power to shape your life in beautiful, beautiful ways. And so with that, I just want to say Thanks for coming on this journey with me, talking about detaching compassionately and letting go like a pro. If you want to continue to learn more about all of these things, lucid dreaming, as well as lucid living, which really this is all about, how to live a life lucidly aware, then make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you're notified when the next video comes out. I'm so excited for you and the progress you're going to make in living a life more detached compassionately as you work through these steps.